Hello, welcome. Today I would like to share a somatization on what I call embryonic breathing. It came about around 20 years ago when my husband Len made a comment that a man, one of our teachers, named Lou Kleinsman, said that another of our teachers, Professor Chang Man Ching, they were both Taiji teachers. The professor was a major person who brought Taiji to America, to New York, and Lou was one of his main students. So what Lou said was that the professor said that he felt the omental bursa was related to the dantian. When Len told me this, I did not know about the omental bursa. I knew about the greater omentum, the kind of apron that hangs over our abdomen, but I didn't know about the omental bursa. So at the time I was very ill, and when I looked up the omental bursa, I found that it was part of the peritoneal sac that holds the organs. So embryologically, we had a yolk sac outside of the front of our body very, very early when we were just 2 layers. And then we brought that bag in, and it became our digestive tract and gave rise to all of the stomach, all of the digestive tract, the liver, the gallbladder, pancreas, appendix. So it gave rise to the digestive organs, and then also the lungs, the lung bud that became our respiratory system. So before the yolk sac came in, we grew a covering around it of I'm wondering how to say this without getting too detailed, but it was a layer of protection. It was called mesenchyme. Most of our structure comes from mesenchyme, but this was, if you think of muscle, maybe that's the way, the protection of strength around the yolk sac. So when we brought it into our body, this protective layer came in with it, and that became the mesentery, or the peritoneal sac. So in this process of just bringing in the yolk sac and it being a single tube from mouth to anus, it grew. And it grew so much that eventually it projected into the umbilical cord, because the body hadn't grown big enough for this big tube that was moving. And then the body cavity was big enough, and the digestive tube came back, and it was led by the appendix to here. But meanwhile, our digestive tract is very undulating, muscular, and it moves. It moves. It doesn't just lie there like a plastic model, but it's moving, and it's anchored in different places at the mouth, certainly, and the anus, and then the appendix also helps to anchor it here. Well, in the process of this movement of our digestive tract and organs developing off of it, the peritoneum, peritoneal cavity, peritoneal membrane is undulating with it. And in that process, there's a membrane called the the lesser omentum. I have to always check my wording. So there's the lesser omentum, and then there's the greater omentum, and the greater omentum is the apron, and the lesser omentum is a membrane here. Let me put my hand, and you put your hand in the area under your ribs. And what this membrane does, there's a cavity then between your stomach and your pancreas. So your stomach, you have your esophagus coming down, your mouth, your pharynx, your larynx, your esophagus, your stomach, and duodenum, and your small intestine. Meanwhile, you also have your liver. So under your liver, I'll get there, under your liver, behind your stomach, in front of your pancreas. So I said stomach, liver, the pancreas is behind the stomach. You can look in a book, it'll be easier. Liver, esophagus going through the diaphragm, stomach, going into the duodenum, and here is the pancreas, kind of held with the duodenum, by the duodenum, like a baby. In between the stomach and the pancreas is a cavity. A bursa is a cavity, and that cavity is created by the lesser omentum. All right, so the cavity is behind the stomach, in front of the pancreas, below the liver. I wasn't able, because I was very ill, I wasn't able to do very much, but I could breathe. And so I went to the space behind my stomach, under my liver, in front of my pancreas. And I breathed into that space. And what I discovered was I could hardly breathe in that space. And I was extremely weak. And so my breath was extremely weak. And I felt like, I don't know if I had ever breathed there. When I was strong, I don't know. But at that point, I was very little breath. But I took that very little breath and I breathed there. And it didn't take long before all of a sudden I went, I had a big gasping breath. And so I know enough that when there's a change like that, leave it and just breathe regularly. But being also very curious, I would periodically go back and breathe in that space. I don't remember day by day, but not so many days that I don't remember exactly. All of a sudden, my breath got longer. Well, it got gradually longer too, but I mean, it really got longer. It was like there was a cavity here and then it opened up. And in this lesser omentum, there's a foramen, a little hole. The omental foramen, it's also called the epiploic foramen. And what I discovered was that my breathing had become I guess, fluid enough within that small chamber that the epiploic foramen opened up, and I went into another space in this peritoneal sac. Another name for this omental bursa is the lesser peritoneal sac. And then everything else is called the greater peritoneal sac, and they're connected through this epiploic foramen. What I found in my own research for myself is that there were a lot of adhesions between my digestive tract segments, so that even though there was this whole greater no, I'm not saying the right word, this greater peritoneum sac, greater peritoneum, that there were different things glued, so it was like there were a lot of chambers. And the key to opening them was to diminish any effort. So instead of doing big breaths or counting any of this, it was just with minimal effort. Starting here, and eventually the breath traveled through my whole body. Within 2 months after starting this breathing, my health improved dramatically. Really, really astounding. I still had years to work to improve, and still today I'm still more than 20 years not returning to the way that I was, but embodying more of who I am. So over the years I've shared this, what felt to me, what came to me was embryonic breathing. This breathing that's it's not breathing the air. We don't do that till we're born. This is very, very early in the developmental fluid movement of the development and the folding of our nourishing system, which is digestion and breathing. These two systems, one with creating sugar, glucose, and one oxygen, they travel to all of our cells, including their own, and in the mitochondria they create our energy. Sugar and oxygen become the ATP, or the energy that fuels our body. So a key to this embryonic breathing is that it's inside of the body. I should say that, let me take this here, this area below your sternum, this is the area, if you just put your hand there, where the omental bursa is. And then it travels. So I was curious what the professor meant when he said it was related to the dantian, because the dantian is lower. This is lower, this is higher. What's interesting is that this yolk sac that becomes our digestive and respiratory system actually enters the body here, becomes our digestive tract, and then a piece of it, kind of like if you have a hose of water or the sink, the water coming in the sink, it comes up to go down. So as the yolk sac, which has fluid, came in, there was a rebound, something called the allantois, and then our navel, it grew into our navel. So the yolk sac was coming in, through here, going up and down, and then coming out. So we have nourishment from the birth mother. I hope I wasn't too confusing. The embryonic breathing is actually simple. My explanation was complex. All right, so what to do? Eventually I'm going to ask you to lay down, but I think now, see if I'm clear, you'll place your hand when you lay down on your belly, but not your belly, but this area under your ribs, mid-abdominal area, and you could have one here too. When you breathe, first notice if you do a bellows breathing, which is, where you poke out, you expand like a bellows or like a balloon. And this is not that. This is where you actually, if anything, you're going deeper. So instead of going this way, you go that way, and so your back will expand more and your sides. So that you're not going backward, but your breath goes along the back wall of the peritoneal sac and widens so that when your hands are here, you'll feel more movement. Instead of this, you'll feel more width. And if your hands are in the back, you'll feel more expansion in the back. But don't make it, it will happen. If you make it, then it's your frontal lobe telling your body what to do. We've done this before, if this is not your first time. To release your frontal lobe, open your back of your brain to receive the information, so your cellular activity is informing your brain. Then you have more to think with, where if you start here, you don't have really new information. Well, you have new information, but it's based on old patterns, where original experience, you actually have new ways of being, not building on the old ways only. You don't forget them, but you have a richer foundation. All right, one more thing. One of the ways that you'll know that you're entering this area is that there will be a time when you go, that's also the sign to stop and just return to your unconscious breathing. And I think the reason for that is that we're opening new areas and we're calling in more oxygen, because we need to fill that area with oxygen, which will then be used for energy. Anything else? That as this breathing deepens, it will become longer, but it's maybe shorter in the beginning than your regular breathing. It can even sometimes feel that you're not breathing, but it's so deep that it's quiet. It's kind of the breath of no breath that I've read about in ancient writing. Yoga writing. The other thing is that it's a fluid breathing. It's not air, it's fluid. And when I'm really quiet, it just, I don't know where it is in a way. It just like one breath will be like a rivulet. And then it's another rivulet. It's like nature. It doesn't just repeat. It varies. It feels fluid. and it can't be forced. If you force your breathing, you're going to go into the membrane and not into the space. This is about breathing in the space of the peritoneal sac, not in the membranes like that. They'll get harder. No, this is about softening, and it releases adhesions. That's what it feels like. And other people have told me that it's really helped them, and during the coronavirus, there have been people who said that, who had the virus, that this was very helpful, as well as the lung breathing that we did at another somatization. So if you haven't done that and you're interested, that's also available. You can do it in any position. It's the only way I breathe anymore. For me to breathe differently would take so much energy, and why would I use all that energy to breathe when it's the breathing that's offering energy? I think maybe I finished, at least for now. So I'm going to suggest that you lie down and be in any comfortable position. I found it on my back because I have my hands here, but I also, now I could stand on my head. It wouldn't make a difference. Be where you're comfortable. So find a comfortable place. And I always want to say, some people, when I say find a comfortable place, they meditate a lot and they actually want to do it sitting. Doesn't really matter. I say lie down so that you're not engaging a lot of muscle activity, and you can, all your energy, your ATP can go toward supporting your breathing to create more, rather than using it up with another activity. But it's not an exercise, it's a way of breathing. All right, lay down. Are you comfortable? I'll suggest you close your eyes so that you're not having to process vision. And if at any point my voice is interfering with you, turn off the machine or just ignore me. And if I'm helpful, then hopefully I'll say something that will be helpful. Or maybe I can just breathe with you. So placing your hand or hands over your solar plexus, the area under your ribs above your navel. And just breathe regularly, so you're not manipulating yourself. And know that you did this already. This is a remembering. You know, memory's more in the back till we don't remember. Here in the frontal lobe, we kind of project. But in the back, we hold our memories. So opening the back of your brain and just breathing. The warmth of your hands will bring attention. And while you're resting, and maybe you're shifting to find a comfortable position, or maybe you found it already. Notice if your organs or skin is coming into your hand, if it's moving forward or not. So that's the first thing, is to know what you're actually doing, how you're actually breathing. There's another thing that many people pull in the xiphoid in breathing. That's another exploration. So I'm not talking about your sternum, below your sternum. there might be differences in your thorax. And then with your left hand, because your stomach is on the left, just, you can not massage, but just kind of feel a little bit of, if I use the word poking, that's too strong, but just, massage is too strong a word, but just kind of feel your stomach. It's right under your hand. If you're under your left ribs, that's your stomach. And just notice how your stomach is while you're breathing. And then lay your left hand over your stomach. And what do you feel if you breathe, if your stomach breathes? Not that you breathe into your stomach, but your stomach is breathing. And notice if it's pressing into your hand or it's just resting. And see if you open your awareness behind your stomach. So you're over your stomach, hand is over your stomach, then you feel that you're breathing in your stomach, and then breathing behind your stomach. So your right hand is more in the middle of your solar plexus, and your left hand is a little bit to the left over your stomach. That's why the back is helpful, lying on your back, but sometimes on the side with pillows you can prop yourself. Comfort. And with the least amount of effort, least amount of breath, open to the space behind your stomach, under your liver. Your stomach is under your liver. Liver's higher. We are under the liver with our hands. And breathing in that space. And if already you've had a kind of a gasping thing, then go to your regular breathing. So whatever I'm saying, be in your regular breathing. And the reason for that is that I feel we're very much changing our chemistry. And you don't want to change your chemistry so rapidly that you can't process it. Then you can get sick for a different reason. So if we've had some kind of imbalance and we release that imbalance toward what would be balanced, we think, oh good, let's just get balanced, but the chemistry can overload our system and we're not prepared for that drastic a change. So just trust your path of destiny and relax. And I'm not sure I have much more to say except to enjoy whatever you discover. Curiosity, inquiry, but not in the frontal lobe. if you go to your frontal lobe, that's kind of the end of the exploration, and you might as well get up and do something with your frontal lobe that's directive. And then come back at another time. Maybe you're washing dishes and you just pause for a moment and check your breathing in the peritoneal sac, beginning with the omental bursa. And I just say beginning with the omental bursa because that's the path that led me in. You may find another path. And I did it this way because my teacher gave me a clue. 30 years after he said it, the message got to me. So let me pause for a moment while you're breathing. I could say one more thing, and that is that this breathing, eventually, my experience is that it goes more up and down the center of the body and not forward and back or side, which it also will do, but more and more it feeds the central channel of the body. They somehow come together. Through the anatomy, I don't know what that is. And the message that came to me through Len, through Lou, through the professor, and now you have to add me to you, and then the next person adds you, that somehow it supported the spine, the central channel. Later you can explore moving from that, but for now this is just about the breathing itself. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks for joining me. Be well.